Yes, we're still onto the economy today, looking at the economy. Today we're looking at the segment of the economy that is supposed to bring in a lot of investment prospects, a lot of progress and development in that regard. The section is the real estate sector. So we want to look at the investment level and the challenges therein. Looking at the prospects, proposed or rather the intended prospects and also the investment flow, and why some of those things that are supposed to be working in the industry are not working as at present, or it is working but it is not raking in money as it's supposed to be. So I am in the presence of a lawyer who has a vast experience also in the real estate sector, who also has a lot of experience being a lawyer in the country. Tunde Obileye, he's also a writer. Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you for having me today.
All right, sir. So, sir, first of all, we want to look at the real estate sector as it is. There seems to be a lot of potentials in that area, apart from, say, land, properties, and all that. So there are issues with infrastructure and the rest of them. And there's a lot of investment coming in. But again, there are also a lot of challenges in that same circle. So from your own experience, as a lawyer and also as somebody who has practiced within that space for some time, and who also has deliberated on issues within that space, what is your input, for investments in that area?
Well, before I answer the question itself, let me make a correction. Yes, I'm a lawyer, but I practice in the UK.
Okay, great.
And since I've been back, I choose not to practice in Nigeria, but to focus my energy in other areas. Obviously, real estate, facilities management being my main vocation now, but with links to real estate. And to answer your question, Nigeria generally, when I talk about issues in Nigeria, I don't limit my response or responses to the specific issue alone, because I strongly believe that a lot of our challenges are not limited to this specific area that one is looking at. I tend to look at the issues more broadly as far as the Nigerian society and the Nigerian state is concerned. We from I don't know whether to call it a culture, we've created a culture of mediocrity, culture of lack of accountability, culture of lack of transparency, a culture of what I would call bad governance. So what that translates into is that at every level of government in Nigeria, at every level of engagement, whether private sector, public sector, you almost get the same kind of activities in terms of what our input and output are. So what am I saying? Let's look at real estate, for instance. There is nothing wrong with investment in the sector. People putting money into the sector and expecting returns. However, the framework, the structure, the processes, the procedures, the standards are almost non-existent in how they should operate. So you find investors put money into real estate investment, but by the time they get what they've invested in, the property or whatever it is, there is always one problem or the other. So what you find is people having to spend much more or to do so much more than is necessary for them to get what they want. Now, people will generally say that they make returns on their investment.
Yes.
Okay, because we have a shortage of homes in Nigeria. There is a huge gap.
A very, very huge one.
I think, if I remember, we're looking at about 18,000 or something in that region. A gap in homes that we still need to be able to provide shelter. Now, so that means there is a big market in that space. However, we've had instances of property collapse or building collapse. We've had issues with incompetent professionals, who don't deliver to standard, to what they're supposed to do. So there is a whole lot around the Nigerian state itself that you find in every sector of the economy, and real estate is not an exception.
So, but concentrating on the real estate right now, I know Nigeria has its own peculiar challenges, like you have said, they are mostly structural issues, with all these sectors. And the issue is that, like you said, culturally, we have not been able to build a particular great culture to be able to say, okay, in all our sectors, this is how we work. This is how everything should work. Like somebody was telling me one time, he said, it is not about having a very good president or whatever. It is just about having the right structures. So the man walks into that same right structure, and the structure continues in the way it is supposed to be, and everything works well. So if 10 people come in there, they will do the same thing over and over again. But then the real estate now, you've talked about, yes, there's a lot of investment coming into that place. But there's some little challenges that people are looking at now. Some of them is the unattainable capital markets, like unstable capital markets, where today the policies are great, tomorrow the policies are not great. It is always fluctuating, it is up there, it is down there, it is nowhere. Sometimes you don't even know what is happening. Like now, the Forex is an issue. Trying to get the dollar to the naira, and everything seems to be skyrocketing. So, looking at all those challenges, do you think the sector itself has been able to, mitigate, around some of those things and stand firm?
Well, again, it's demand and supply. When demand for housing is higher or bigger than supply, what you get is people willing to pay exorbitant prices for real estate, and that's what I find in Nigeria. The economy generally is weak, yet people have to survive. People want shelter. Government is doing very little. So what you find is most people, working class, even informal sector, formal sector players, have to find a way to own, because nobody wants to remain a tenant. So there is that desire on the part of the average Nigerian to own his or her own place, and that puts pressure on everyone to find the money. And the developers are also taking advantage of that in some way. I'm not saying entirely, but in some way. Of course, because the economy is weak, because the exchange, Forex, need for materials to come in from abroad, and they have to source for Forex, that puts pressure again on the naira. And what you find is the cost of goods, cost of services going up all the time. Yet the income is not rising at the same rate. And so that in itself creates a problem. It creates a problem in the sense that you're desperate. And
you just want to get it.
You want to, yes.
And so whatever is put out there, the investor had to just take it.
And that's why you find You know, a friend of mine, I just spoke with them this morning. I met with them when I was out earlier. And they just bought a place in Ikoyi. But they're spending quite a bit of money to, will I say, do it up.
Renovate, okay, now build it up and then to the standard, or tied it up.
To the standard that it should have been in at the time of taking possession. There are two aspects to that. Me buying the place and wanting to furnish it and to upgrade it, and me taking possession of a property that has not met the standard of what a building should be. There are two different scenarios.
Now, I'll come back to it. We're going to go on a short break now. He just raised something about, you know, people getting things and then they are just investing. Sometimes when they invest, they tend to like spend so much money and yet may not get the right results, you know, they want. We'll go for a very short break and I'll be right back to give you more. Welcome back. We're still onto the economy today, and we're looking at the real estate sector. We're looking at the investment level and challenges within it. Yes, you raised an issue of, you citing an example, and for me, I just see it as those are hiccups. You know, somebody buying a property and then paying so much for it, and then finding out that the property he had to now spend so much again to bring it up. Now there is the law. I know you say you are not practiced in Nigeria, you are not practicing in Nigeria, you practiced in UK. So we want to look at the two laws now. The property laws in the UK and the property laws in Nigeria. Which one is more seamless, for somebody investing in a property in the UK or somebody investing in a property in Nigeria? Which one seems to be easier to do?
Well, without a doubt, I believe buying a property in the UK is less stressful. And that's obvious because there is a system in place that runs from start to finish without any major problem. Of course, no system is perfect, so I wouldn't say that they don't have issues in the UK. But those issues are very, very, you are unlikely to encounter any major problem the way people encounter them in Nigeria. You put money down into an investment, maybe buying off plan, you don't know when the property development will complete. So obviously, there is a structure and a framework that works very, very well in the UK. Now, that is not to say that it does not work in Nigeria. However, there are always too many issues that people have to deal with. Property may not be ready on time, or you could find one issue or the other, or multiple issues at the time you've taken possession that were not obvious to the naked eye. Maybe plumbing problem, wiring problem. Of course, a new development is likely to have one or two issues, even abroad. However, those issues are not always at the same level that you find in Nigeria. So yes, you do the integrity test, you do the tests to see that all of the different components work together, and you wouldn't know that until when someone starts to live in the property. So if this property is brand new and you move into it, of course, until you start to use all the facilities, you're not likely to know how well they will function. So you could have some wiring problems, some plumbing problems, some whatever problem. But generally, the system works from when you identify a property that you want to buy to when you complete. The lawyers know what to do. The developers are held to standards. Do you understand? If there are issues or a dispute, you can get redress without having to stress too much. Now in Nigeria, there are too many issues that you have to deal with. So to answer your question in a nutshell, obviously the system abroad works better. Let me put it that way. It's not that it does not work here, but there are always so many issues that we've come to accept.
That those issues are.
And so rather than kind of challenge those who are responsible, we tend to just accept them and just move on, because people seem to be too overwhelmed with many issues anyway. So they just accept and say, you know what? It's just become a culture. Let me put it that way.
That brings me to, like the protection law, on acquiring properties and the rest of them. Like somebody gets a land or gets a property, whichever way. He pays, he invests, he has paid for everything, after consulting either with the family or whoever, whether it's a third party or a second party, whatever, and all the thing, he gets everything, and then he starts to build. Maybe he wants to take it to being an upstairs, and then he gets to the lintel level, and another set of people comes up. They call themselves the Omoniles or whoever, or the family or whatever they call themselves, and they request for another payment at that time. I have discovered that, okay, there is a portion where in the constitution of Nigerian constitution,
law.
Yes, or law, that, okay, it says this and this, but there's a but that you can actually also relate with these people to not to foment trouble. So is that part of the issue, that what you just raised now, like you have done the due diligence, you have done everything to acquire the property, you don't need to have an extra, bills again attached to the investment?
Well, again, everything always seems to be different in Nigeria. And I guess maybe to an extent, again, culture plays out. Omonile, I don't want to believe that anybody appreciates the role of Omonile in real estate transactions. But it is what it is in Nigeria. Yes, Lagos State made some legislations to kind of find a way to reduce the pressure and stress that people have to go through with Omonile. However, I do not personally support what the legislation has put in place. I believe, in my opinion, it's my personal opinion, that most of what the Omoniles do is extortion.
Just extortion.
For me, it's just another way of extorting money from people, because in the ordinary contractual transactions, once you sell me whatever it is and I pay, I own it.
But the law is supposed to actually protect people, and from this kind of issues.
Yeah, the law has provided some level of protection, no doubt, because the law clearly states that, people can't just, come onto your land or cause violence or force themselves onto your land in a quest to take money off you. However, it has also provided some lacuna and created opportunities for Omonile to be able to get some money off you even after you have paid them for the land.
So the law is like being flexible at that point.
At some point, and I guess the reason is just to, in the absence of a perfect way to deal with the situation, government has just kind of created an opportunity where there is some protection, but
there is no protection.
No, I won't say there is no protection. I will just say government has also allowed an opportunity for you has created an opportunity not to completely exclude Omonile and some of their activities. So the law has allowed for them to approach you to say, oh, this levy, foundation fee or foundation levy, decking, roofing, those categories, just so that we prevent them from becoming a nuisance. Because at the end of the day, if you do not, I can understand the rationale behind government doing that, though I don't necessarily agree with government. I believe it's not right that you are in some way at the mercy of Omonile, even after you have taken possession of land that you've paid for. Because that's the whole idea, that I'm getting something in return for giving something.
So finally, sir, I wanted to ask you another question, but can just do a wrap up because right now our time is quite spent. So, like, in your own overview, how do you think that sector can actually propel better? You know, eliminating all the challenges. What do you think the government should do?
Well, I'm not sure whether government has to demonstrate will to tackle all these challenges, and to the extent that we're still struggling to deal with what I would call, again, another form of corruption at the different levels. You know, it's not easy to go to government office and ask or demand or request what shouldn't be a problem. You know, you're going to get people running rings around you until you kind of settle them. Omonile, you know, will harass you. You go to the police. Police, if you don't settle them, police won't again do much. So you find, you know, it's just a vicious cycle. And yes, if government demonstrate will that they want to tackle it, I'm sure they can.